One thing to start off with is the type of spirituality that I follow is not really one that's normal. I mean, to an extent, you could call it normal in a weird way. So basically, what I mean is, I am religious. It's just that I'm not dedicated to any specific religion. I believe in God. I believe in everything that spirituality has to offer in terms of internal growth and external projection. What lies beyond death and before birth. I believe in that. And I know for a fact that deep down in every single human being, that's something that in a primal way resonates with everyone. To that end, I don't know that my spirituality resides in any YouTube video out there. So, to get to the point, I believe and respect all religions, but I do not follow any one of them individually. And that in itself is my core belief. And to that end, I've tried studying as many religions as I could, understanding them fundamentally for what they can teach and what they can offer. Because what I believe is God was shown to people in different ways, at different times, and for different reasons. And people around the world looked up to the figure or figures that is God, for protection, for security, for peace, for victory, for all desires for the most part, on earth and after. And God has shown himself in many variations in order to fulfill that. And that fulfillment primarily comes from the belief that the people have had in him, and what that belief had in turn resulted in them doing in order to achieve what they desired. It's a powerful force belief is. So it's very important to kind of focus on how you think and how you feel, and your internal view of what the world is. And basically, to kind of go off on a little bit of a tangent, and although it's not exactly a tangent if I explain myself clearly, spirituality is in a way rooted in psychology. Because when you try to understand the workings of the human mind, you inevitably have to come to terms with that person's spirituality. And every single person, religious or not, has to be spiritual. It's the default, in my opinion, with regards to humans. spirituality is a default. It does not have to. It doesn't necessarily have to be um, focused towards any religion, but it is focused towards something that is, in turn, making them feel spiritual. It's a part of the human experience, and it's something one has to discover for themselves. And a good way to do that is prayer, meditation, talking, sitting with yourself, journaling. It's reflecting, self-reflecting, just projecting yourself into the future, into the past, thinking about stuff, being grateful for what you have and what you've been given. All of that plays a big role. And most successful religions teach this one way or another. Pray to God, meditate on your own inner workings, I guess. And going back to the point where I mentioned that I'd have a little bit of a tangent with psychology. I always like to I always like to reference Carl Jung for his idea about the unconscious. This side of the brain that represents the unconscious, and the collective unconscious for that matter. Because what it means to a good extent, when you compare it with religion, is that there's a part of you that's ingrained in you, in your head, in your mind, in the way you think and behave and act. There's a part of you that isn't necessarily you, but it represents collectively every single human being out here. And it speaks to us, to our conscious side, about what must be done, what we need to feel, how things really are. And if you project enough of that collective unconscious out into the world, you can start to see patterns, which is fascinating, because to that end, what it means is that you can use the logical side of your brain to look at these patterns and understand them and read them, and what will come out of that is spirituality. I know I lost you halfway through that, or probably way before this, but it makes sense when you think about it. So if you take the unconscious, the collective unconscious, that is something that you have no control over, but is a part of you and a part of every single person. It guides you subconsciously in what you do, how you feel, what you say, what you create, and how you perceive the world, and how you act in the world. And this is something that's ingrained in every single human being. And what it leads to is a bit of a kind of synchronization between people, in the way it's like an ant colony, but not as extreme, I guess. Or maybe it is. So you have multiple people doing their own thing, being kind of guided by this unconscious side of themselves. And if every single one of us follows this in our own way, believing in our own spiritual lessons, teachings, experiences, whatever you want to call it, what it leads to is a deducible pattern. And this pattern can, in many ways, explain the phenomena of spirituality and why it is so powerful. Because if you have faith in this and you let it guide you, you are giving yourself access to something that's primal and a force that pushes and moves people to do things that are fundamentally what humans do. It sounds like I'm stating an obvious fact. At this point, it sounds like I'm stating an obvious fact, but because it is an obvious fact that we are all connected. We are all people who strive on community, who strive on doing things together, and even mentally, or rather, that's not the right word. Indirectly, we are all indirectly connected in the way we do behave and act. And that in itself, I think, proves the existence of God as being an architect of the world in its creation and in its actions. Pretty much sums it up.